Good time. This market's crashing a bit.
Yeah,
Tesla's
and the
crashing.
rest.
Tesla might get to
I
that
was gonna I
120.
was gonna say, good thing you didn't have that. You closed whatever that put order.
Oh no, I still have the cash secured put.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Did you move it lower? It should have executed by now, right?
No, May 11th is the expiration date. So it's by the expiration date. So on the
Right,
expiration date, if it's above 150, then it'll
right,
just expire.
right.
But if it's
Okay, well,
below 150 on May 11th for me,
got it. Okay, that was May 11th. Okay, I
yeah.
thought somebody might have exercised already since Tesla's below 150. So
Oh no. I think it'll be above 150 by May 11th, but we'll see. There's
I've
been
been
a
hearing
lot
people
of
say
fun
like
over the weekend.
100. Yeah, it's like when are we gonna buy 100 now?
I know. The
Oh
people
man.
just love to pummel on Tesla when it's going down.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, get it lower.
Well, I mean, it's looking worse, right? It's got the Cybertruck recall,
Yeah.
halted deliveries. What was it now? Like discounts now on the Y,
Yep.
X and the S. Was it S? Yeah.
Yeah. All models were discounted by $2,000.
Wow. There's desperation in that. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of things. We just can't get away from Tesla. They're just always making so much news. But
Yeah.
Tesla's been doing a number of things in this last week. Like you mentioned, they reduced all their models by $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
They reduced full self driving from it's the story says 12,000 to
Mm-hmm.
8,000, but we
Mm-hmm.
we deconstructed this in the previous episode. It's not
Yeah.
really that. It's enhanced autopilot is
Yeah.
$6,000, and then FSD
Yeah.
is another $6,000. So if you wanted to buy both
Yeah.
of those together, it's $12,000. But now, if you
Uh-huh.
want to buy both of those together, it's $8,000.
Yeah.
I didn't check the builder, but I'm assuming they just reduced enhanced and FSD by $2,000. So now it's 4,000 and
Right.
4,000.
Yeah.
We talked about last week. They reduced their FSD subscription from
Mm-hmm.
$299 to $99, and then they laid off 10,000 people in the last week here,
Yeah.
as Elon says, to prepare for the next. He's spinning it optimistically, right? Which is
Yeah.
to prepare for the next wave of growth. But two key executives had left the company, or the media says left the company, but we all know
Yeah.
they got laid off as well.
Right.
So yeah, big changes. Oh, and the last thing that wasn't mentioned is I read this morning Elon is delaying his trip to India, and apparently he was supposed to go to India to
Mm-hmm.
announce some things and maybe sign some solidify, I guess, hit the
Yeah.
entrance of Tesla into India,
Yeah.
and he postponed that trip.
Now that's what that. Okay, I figured. I saw some headlines about it, and I was like, oh, okay. Wonder what that was about. But that makes sense because I remember like India was the next big thing after China, and there's a lot of talk about them finally bringing Tesla there. But
Hmm.
I guess not.
The other thing we talked about in another episode, and I saw a TikTok about this as well from someone else. They were talking about how Tesla's next wave of growth is turning into a software company. So I
Everybody
thought it was
says
interesting. I
that.
was like,
I
yeah,
mean, that's yeah.
I think that's. I don't think Tesla's going to turn into a software company,
Hmm.
but I do think they're going to look on how to expand and leverage their software and services. I think they'll always be, like Apple isn't a software company, but they make good software. I think Tesla's going to be the same, where they're not a software company. They're primarily hardware, right? So solar, cars, whatever's next.
Hmm.
But they're also going to have a good software arm that they can make money off of. That's my thought.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's always been part of the bulls. That's always been part of the growth story, right? So Tesla is not a car manufacturer. It is, services and technology and software has always been part of that. And if you think of what they've done with, um, like on the solar side of it, right? Their battery tech,
Mm-hmm.
uh, their software management of that is actually pretty interesting. Um, it's been interesting. He's always, let's see, Tesla earnings are next week, right? So
Thursday.
that'll, I guess we'll be talking about Tesla next week also. But yeah, so I think the layoffs thing was a big hint that things aren't going well because for car manufacturing, you really only lay off when you don't need to make as many cars. Um, and so it's like, okay, you can spin it however you want, Elon, but this doesn't make sense. Versus where like, big tech says layoff because we overhired. Okay, you can kind of get it, right?
Mhm.
Not enough work for people to do. But for car manufacturing, it's more of, oh, when you look at the big three, like Ford, GM, when they lay off, they furlough. It's because they don't need to produce as many cars.
Yeah,
So that's never a good sign.
it's interesting times. Obviously, I'm as I've said, I'm still bullish. So I see it as a buying opportunity, but if you're buying it now, my thought is it's probably going to be a year until the stock really starts turning around.
Yeah, I might open a starter position if it gets to 100.
I have a current buy order at 142. So
Okay. Yep. We're at 147. We'll see this week.
yeah, it's
Depending on how bad, depending on how bad the numbers, I could totally see it like dropping another 20, 25%.
the fear and index indicator is fear right now. So uh,
Yeah.
oh, the other one that went down was NVIDIA, and NVIDIA's been going down too. That's been a knife.
Yeah. NVIDIA took down everybody. Like yeah, Super Micro was like at 1,000 something. And I was looking, I was like, wow, it's in the 700s now. It's like, man, talk about missed short side opportunity on all these. I mean, it was bound to happen.
Yeah,
They've been
we
weak
needed a
for a couple
correction.
weeks now.
Do you
Yeah.
think? Do you think it's? Do you think it's just like a standard corrections for? So I guess another question, the way we ask that is, if the conflict in Israel and Iran didn't start, and
Mm-hmm.
the CPI print didn't come out as it was, do you think
Yeah.
we still would have had this pullback, or do you think it's directly contributed to those two things, or one of those things?
I mean, well, I say partially in that it just doesn't help sentiment, right? Because it's just unresolved. Market does not like uncertainty. But I was not reading. I was watching some whatever analyst, and I guess I didn't catch this, but TSM was saying they expect full year. They gave like weaker guidance for the full year. Um,
Was that
did you
after?
catch that?
Well, I did catch it, but I heard the opposite. I heard that they gave good guidance.
No, they gave like weaker guidance for the rest of the year.
I heard ASML
And
gave
then
gave weaker guidance.
well, ASML two,
Yeah.
and then TSM um did also,
Okay.
and then Supermicro announced their next earnings date
Mhm.
and didn't give any future guidance like they have for the past like 7 earnings. What's like last time, if you remember, the reason Supermicro took off is because they like gave a kind of like a pre-announce of, oh yeah, we're expecting great things, and that's where it shot up like 20%. Um, right?
Yeah.
But this next earnings, they didn't do that, and so a lot of people are like, well, why wouldn't they? Right? Unless things weren't as great as they thought they would be. So yeah, it seems a lot of things are
Yeah.
coming to
I see. So
roost.
yeah, on a call with analysts, TSM cut its forecast for overall market growth this year, excluding memory chips, to 10%, down from
Yeah,
more than 10% previously. Okay, so
yeah,
they reduced it because before they said um, overall market growth was going to be down more than 10%, but now it's
yeah,
to 10%. So still a
yeah,
bad forecast.
yeah. Right, and
Yeah.
since NVIDIA is one of their biggest customers,
Yep. I wonder if that has to also do with the CPI print, or were they already expecting that, even if
yeah,
inflation was still coming up. This whole inflation stuff is
yeah,
just it's so annoying.
yeah. I don't know. I, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Like I think companies are using inflation as an excuse
Hmm.
at this point, right? Um, yeah,
Okay.
but we'll see. I mean, the earnings will tell will help tell fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
We'll find out this week.
Well, they're all cycles. So coming back down, we went back up, coming back down, we'll go
Yeah.
back up, come back down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people have said this in the beginning, right? Before or as everything as semis were accelerating, is that semis is a very cyclical
Yeah.
industry, right? It's not an industry that goes straight up, right? There are big downturns.
Yeah.
Maybe we've kind of hit that early, or maybe the whatever big tech has decided we're gonna start doing our own chips and not rely on NVIDIA too much,
Yeah.
which I've seen some stories around that too. Anyways,
That's why dollar cost averaging is usually the best strategy. All right. All right, let's move on to the next stories. So, the other one I want to chat about, Humane AI pin, that's been making the waves this last week, mostly because of the bad reviews that have been happening on this new device.
one of the founders is actually an ex-Apple person. He was like a very senior level person on the Apple side. The idea is this Humane. It's like an intelligent assistant that basically is to help you do everything. Weirdly, it is independent of anything else. So it is a standalone product, not meant to be used with your phone, as you typically would kind of assume something like this would do. But yeah, it's basically trying to introduce, I'm just going to call it a new category of products, is what it's trying to do. So it's like this square box you attach to yourself, and you basically talk to it, and that's its thing. It's AI driven, of course. Everything is at this point. It's got a camera. It's got this kind of interesting holographic thing in order to like control it. Um, from what I've seen, it's kind of cool. It reminds me of what's that movie with Tom Cruise?
Minority Report.
Yes, it reminds me of like some of the visuals they use in that. But yeah, it projects, and you the way you tilt your hand is how you interact with it. But it's very basic. Apparently not visually clear.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, so that's what it is. I'll just call it. It is an AI assistant product. Is literally what it is.
Hmm.
So a lot of hoopla around, I guess, now that reviewers have gotten their hold of it.
Yeah.
Namely Marquise Brownlee, saying it was the worst product he has reviewed ever, and so that
Yeah.
apparently set off this firestorm of. Well, I mean, sometimes bad press is good press, but in this case, I'm not sure.
He's getting some heat for it too. I've seen,
Yeah.
uh, but he wasn't even the first one that I saw do that. Like when in my TikTok feed, I saw The Verge and some other tech contributors complaining about how bad it was. The device itself is pretty cool. Like it's well designed. Like you said, the guy worked at Apple for, I was looking it up, I think from 95 2000 to 2007, so 12 years. And so he was involved in designing a lot of the iPhone products and
Mhm.
whatnot. The things that I heard is that it just isn't what you would expect, and it costs $700. And there's also a subscription after that, right?
$24 subscription fee.
So all in for a year, it's about $1,000, maybe
Yes.
$1,100, not
Yes.
including tax.
Not including tax.
I remember seeing the first announcement video of it with
That
him.
also got a lot of flack too when
It
they
did.
first did that launch announcement. I remember seeing on TikTok and everybody's like, "What is it? Like, what are they talking about?" They talked so slow, and it was just like, "What is this thing?" And it was just like it was a weird launch announcement also,
A lot of
and
marketers
inaccuracies.
gave
They had,
it. Yeah, a lot of marketers were critiquing it just because it didn't. Yeah, like you said, it didn't explain what the
yeah,
product was.
yeah, yeah, and I think this is what the reviewers are also showing is that they've created a solution and they're trying to find what the problem is.
Mhm. Yeah. So some of the things that just make it, some of the things about it that make these reviewers give bad reviews. So one is it's very slow. So there's no LLM, large language model, on the device itself. LLMs are these models that process language and then they output whatever the answer is to the question you asked. But they're very computate. They're very. They take a lot of computation, and so they're very intensive in that aspect. So
Mhm.
there's no onboard LLM. So in order to process your request, they need to make a call to the cloud and then return that answer, and then it comes out. And so it could take seconds, maybe even 10, 20 seconds to answer a simple question. And that's one of the
Mhm.
things that's very cumbersome. The You were talking about the projection. So yeah, there's laser projection, and you hold your hand out like this, and it projects to your hand. But depending on maybe the color of your hand or how wrinkly your hand is,
Yeah.
um, it's not it's not that great. And then the third thing that I heard that was a thematic was a lack of some core features. So I think it was The Verge that I saw on their TikTok, and some basic things that you would expect. I think he asked it to set a reminder,
Mhm.
and the PN replied, "This feature is not supported
Yeah.
right now," or "Add something to my calendar.
Mhm.
This feature is not supported." And so those basic core functionalities that come with every phone today don't even exist on this AI pin. So yeah, uh, for me, I always, because of kind of my role in product, and I'm sure you think about this the same way. Totally understand why they wanted to release it so prematurely. They want to start collecting data, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it is a first step in validating the longer term vision, which is in 10 years, you can imagine these pins the size of your thumb, perhaps, that are just on you and recording at all times. It'll get smaller. And so they see a world in 10 years where you're just walking around with it and you don't have to use your phone.
Mhm.
But today it's not there. And quite honestly, based on the reviews I've only seen the reviews. I haven't used it myself.
Mhm.
Perhaps it was too premature.
Mhm.
I don't know. Do you think
Yeah.
it's too early?
Yeah. So, I mean, all right. So, that human AI pin. I think what the problem is that humans are generally we're visually forward species. I'll just say it that way. Um, and this thing is we're reliant completely on voice. Um, and so it's to me it's that is the biggest thing is what limits it is because obviously a phone is the best comparison or really it's what it's competing against, right? And so I don't think it'll ever accomplish what a phone can do. Or even if you think about where Meta and Apple are probably taking the phone, which is basically a visual interface that it's portable, it's always there with you. And so I think this thing is a dead man, dead person walking, because I don't think it solves what the phone will eventually be able to do.
Hmm.
Right? It's basically hamstrung because we're a, we're just very visual. It's very hard for us to do voice. We might be able to listen to two or three things at the same time. Like it's like layering, right? Visually, like if you look at one page, you're able to quickly scan it to find what you want, right? But if you're trying to listen to something, it's very sequential, right? Yes, you might be able to layer on like two or different three voice tracks and kind of pick out, hone in on what you want. But we're just not built that
Yeah.
way, right? And so I think that's the biggest issue is that one, it's trying to compete with the phone that it's not acknowledging who it's competing with,
Yeah.
um, and that's kind of its downfall. Well, we'll see. I'm gonna call it dead person walking. It probably will die.
I am with you on that. I'm not very bullish on this product. Even when they first announced it, I thought the video even though it got a lot of bad rap, I thought the video was good in at least causing some giving some inspiration into like what this thing
Mhm.
could be. So I was very
Mhm.
intrigued and I thought, that's interesting. Now, $1,000 for this?
Mm-mm. No.
uh,
No.
I almost feel like perhaps they have a lot of pressure to get something out, and so that's why they just released it so fast.
Yeah.
But if I was in their shoes, and I'm not, because when you're that type of company with a lot of funding, you get a lot of pressure from board members and etc.
Yeah.
I would have just waited, or I would have done like a closed um, alpha,
Mhm.
sent it to some really key people to start using, and then
Yeah.
collect feedback, and then do a launch to the consumer
Yeah.
where it's probably a little bit better than it is now, but still lacking. So yeah, I'm with you. I call it. I think it's a dud.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing
Yeah.
is, there's another product out there that's not really the same, but it is trying to circumvent the phone, and that's the Rabbit. Have you heard of the Rabbit?
Mm.
It's this device that's powered by Perplexity's AI,
Mhm.
and it's the same thing where you can use it to answer questions or do whatever you need without
Yeah.
your phone. Doesn't have all the capabilities, but it leverages AI.
Mhm.
I just saw that they had sold 100,000 units. So
Oh, I remember that. Okay, now that you said 100,000 unit, yes, okay, I remember seeing it. That They had launched on the first day, and they had only anticipated doing selling pre-ordering a couple of thousand, and then somehow it just like rocket shipped, and they got 100,000. So yes, yeah, I remember that. That was like a few months ago, actually.
their device is much cheaper. It's $200. So
Yeah,
yeah, they if you go to the website, their tagline is "Your Pocket Companion."
yeah,
And so it has a camera, it has a little screen. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But even when I saw that, I my first thought
yeah.
was,
I still couldn't
yeah,
figure. Yeah, I
why did I
remember when
need
I read
this?
them. It's like why are people ordering? It doesn't make sense. I was looking at humans AI pins. So yeah, they had like 230 million in funding, which is
Crazy.
insane. It's like, let's see, backers, Microsoft, OpenAI. Oh, surprise, surprise. Okay, that kind of explains why. Qualcomm, SoftBank, Volvo, LG. Again, it's like, okay, seeing who has funded it. Okay, maybe I can get it. It makes sense for these companies,
Mm,
right? So Volvo car maker, if they could integrate it into their car infotainment system,
yeah.
that might be
So it's
useful.
less about the
Uh,
device then, more about the software
More
technology.
about the software. Yeah, OpenAI. I mean, they're trying to figure out something outside the iPhone. Maybe this is their stab at hardware. Maybe they need to go in a different direction, and maybe that's what they've learned from this $230 million
Hmm.
investment.
We shall see. Give it a year's time, and I'm sure they'll launch more or pivot. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, let's come
big
back.
pivot.
It'd be interesting to come back to this in a year and be like, were we right? Were we wrong? All right, let's switch over to our last story. Boston Dynamics, robots. Uh,
Robots. Everybody loves robots.
yeah, robots. It's interesting because one of the shows I binged on this last week, I don't know if you watched it, is Fallout on Prime Video.
Yeah, I haven't finished it up, but yeah.
It's so good, at least to me. But there's a lot of robots in
Yeah,
there.
it's yeah, it's really great
Yeah,
so far.
and I started watching last night on Netflix, Rebel Moon. I don't know if you watched that. There was a part one last
I
year.
s- yeah, I watched part 1. I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. I was expecting a lot, and then I was like, it's just so weird. Maybe if they had turned it into like a episodic, more like episodic,
Yeah,
it would have made more sense. But it was like, why are you here? How did you even pick this person? What?
it's funny because I started watching it last night and I couldn't remember what it was about, but I know I watched the whole thing last year. Eventually, it came back to me, but
Yeah.
um, part two starts out pretty cheesy. There's a lot of cheesiness in it. So,
No. Okay.
um, yeah, but there's robots. There's robots in there as well. Um, but yeah, Boston Dynamics. There's a new video making going viral because they've announced their new Atlas, which is their robot. And so if you've know about Boston Dynamics, they're famous for the dog robots that they built many years ago
Mhm.
that went viral, and then
Yeah.
they made a more human like robot that they've been playing around with and updating in the last few years.
10 years.
Yeah, and so now they have a new Atlas. And I remember seeing this video for the first time, and I was like, oh, because if you watched it, it starts with a robot that's on its looks like it's on its stomach,
Mm-hmm.
and its legs just come like backwards. It stands up backwards.
Yeah.
Creepiest thing ever. It starts
Yeah.
walking towards you, and the whole body just turns around,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of like Exorcist style. um,
Yeah.
360
Yes.
spin.
Yeah. That's what first came to mind. Yeah. Exorcist. Kind of made me think of Terminator 2, where the Liquid Man, he just like kind of like shapes up into the human form.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways. Yeah.
So it's pretty
Cool.
crazy. I'm sure they did that intentionally, but they've been touting it as being capable of doing work that's too dangerous, too hard, or too dull and dirty for humans. Which is a cool tagline. And
Yeah.
I think I was reading an article from The Verge, and they said three of those things definitely apply to the home. So
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
use case is buying a robot for your home, because this
Yeah.
article I was reading was correlating it to the Jetsons and that robot.
Kind of funny how they did the announcement. They announced Atlas was being retired. Everybody was like, "Oh no, why? What happened?" At first, there were a couple of things of they were like, "Oh, it's because NVIDIA is doing what Tesla is doing." It's like, oh, maybe they're giving up. And then the very next day, they launched
Yeah.
the new Atlas with their creepy, super creepy video. What I thought was interesting was I guess they took it into a new direction to basically slim it down to be more human-like.
Yeah.
So instead of hydraulic based like the previous one, it's all actuator based, which gives it that, I think what you were referencing, it gives us that range of movement that allows it to do a lot of different tasks that a human normally couldn't do. Um, and then the one about being a household type robot, I was actually watching one of their background videos where they were explaining the decisions that went into the head.
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw that, but they intentionally made it round to give it a more friendly feel, versus kind of, I guess, how they were. The alternative was like very square ish, but they decided we're gonna make it round with a very big screen, um, for visual. Eventually, I guess visual communication maybe, but
Yeah.
yeah, super cool. You could tell it was a little bit jerky when it's walking. Um, but anyways,
Yeah.
pretty cool. You kind of see the new direction they're going.
We should do an episode just comparing these robots, because you talked about
That would be a cool idea.
the video that they launched retiring the old Atlas was really good as well. It's like all the bloopers and behind
Yeah,
the scenes and just their journey with this thing.
yeah,
And now they have a new one. So robots are
yeah.
about to have their moment.
Right, and yeah, once you layer on actual AI intelligence on top of it, it's actually kind of scary. Still,
Yeah.
still kind of scary,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
Well, yeah, episode 11.
Um,
Thanks everyone for subscribing and following us. Continue doing so. Tell your friends and let us know what's working and what's not in the comments. And
yeah,
we'll have another one
catch
next
you
week
next
for
week.
you.